en inglés. But I hope to have a few minutes at the end so that hopefully we can engage in a question and answer session. And before I go through the PowerPoint presentation, just let me say a few words about what we do in case some of you don't know. But here, BUA has graciously hosted since 2013 the Immigration Service and Aid Center, which is a ministry of Texas Baptists hosted by BUA. We're not fully, but we are recognized, the organization is, and my wife and I are accredited, partially accredited by the Board of Immigration Appeals, which means that pretty much you have an immigration attorney here in-house. Okay? Now, we don't know everything that immigration attorneys know. We don't do visas, we do religious worker visas. If any woman or child or elderly person has been the victim of abuse, domestic violence, there's also legal immigration relief for them, and we do all those processes at the office. And today, guys, I'm not really going to preach. I've done that before. I've spoken in more of a preaching format. Today, basically, my intention here, my mission is to keep you informed of things, because we get lots of calls at the office, and I've had a million private conversations with people here on campus, outside of this campus, and the emotions range from from just sadness to almost despondency, and so we need to just come forward and tell you things as they are. Okay, we're not going to go to the extremes. We just want to give you some facts, some words of advice from somebody who has been practicing immigration law with the blessing of the Department of Justice for the last 4 years. By the way, little commercial, we've helped over 300 people. We have not lost a single case yet. So the Lord has been good to us. And we will continue to do this work here at the office. And the easiest way I can put what we do into words is just by saying that we have a mandate from the Lord to love and to care for the strangers among us, okay, for the immigrants. And we do not make a distinction between documented and undocumented. It would never cross our mind, our heart, to call anybody illegal, because there's not a single human being who is illegal in this world, okay? And maybe precisely because the undocumented are so vulnerable is that we love them even more. And we will continue to do so. And we do that by offering legal services. So it's whatever legal relief is available to them, we walk with them through the process, and we help them by charging them a nominal fee. We become their legal representatives, and we walk with them all the way through whatever process they come to our office to seek assistance with. So lots of things happening with the new administration, and so I only have about 24 slides. I've divided my presentation into three themes. So first, I want to talk to you about the executive orders that were recently issued by the current administration. And then I also want to talk to you about the current status of DACA, because many of you are DACA, recipients of Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. I'll explain that more as we go into the PowerPoints. And one last word about knowing your rights, okay? And so here we go. So the first thing I want to talk to you about is just understanding what happened with the most recent executive orders from the current administration. They were issued on January 27th, just very recently. And I need you to understand first what happened in the previous administration, because it's very simple. There are more than 11 million undocumented immigrants in the United States. The United States government does not have money to deport them all, okay? So every administration that we have has to establish priorities and say, well, you know, we have some people here who may be dangerous. We're going to name our own priorities and say, well, we're going to go, we don't have money to go after everybody. We're going to go after these people in these categories. So these were the categories from the previous administration. So anybody who had committed aggravated felonies, so criminals, anybody who had committed significant misdemeanors, anybody who entered or re-entered the country without permission after 2014, and if you were ordered removed after 2014, you were also a priority. And lastly, people with gang-related convictions. These were the priorities under the previous administration. Anybody who was not in those priorities was safe. Nobody was going to go after you in any way, shape, or form. Okay? These people were the priorities to be detained, to be deported, go through the process. Under the current administration, something very interesting is happening because all of a sudden it seems like there are no priorities. So we're living in the age of non-prioritization. I should get extra points from Ms. Botello for being able to say that word. So there's really no priorities. Instead of priorities, we have a vast list of categories here that where pretty much you'll see how different this is from the previous administration. So now the priority for deportation is going to be anybody who initially entered without documents, anybody who has a final deportation order, has not been deported yet. And these two are the ones that are very interesting because, and this is language taken from the executive order. It says, anyone charged with any criminal offense where such charge has not been resolved. In other words, anybody is game who has ever been arrested, even if charges were later dropped. And then anyone who committed acts that constitute a chargeable offense without any more definition, any more detail. Now, these two are particularly troubling to immigration advocates because they seem to just open wide the possibilities. And I think the bottom line with these guys is that pretty much ICE from now on can come for anyone. I mean, this is basically what this means to immigration advocates. So we live no longer in the world of priorities for deportation. It's almost like anybody is game. And you guys need to know that, okay? Of course, we're not going to go into all the executive orders because there were a number of them. I'm not going to talk about the wall, and I'm not going to talk about the sanctuary cities. These are more immediate things. Another piece of information that you need to know is that the executive orders authorize the hiring of 10,000 new ICE officers, which effectively is triple the size of La Migra and Compañía. And there's a clear indication that these officers are not going to be mostly at the border, at the ports of entry, although there will be more of them there, nor in detention centers and jails and prisons. These are people who are going to be roaming the streets. Of course, you're not seeing any of this yet because it has barely been signed. So people have to be hired, have to be trained, but we expect that within this year, you will see the presence of ICE actually on the streets all over the country. Okay? It also seeks to ramp up 287G, which is the program that allows local police agencies to sign up their officers as immigration officers. And I'll tell you a little bit more about what's happening in Texas because Texas is moving along those same lines. And it does away with what used to be called PEP, the Priority Enforcement Program, which is what the previous administration went to create it as the Security Communities Program proved to be ineffective. So Secure Communities was the program that initially started under the previous administration, where, if anybody was detained for any sort of infraction, non-immigration related, they could be detained by local law enforcement, and then they would contact ICE, they would contact immigration, there would be a detainer issued, or the other way around, ICE would request a detainer, and according to the facts out there, there began to be problems with civil rights abuses and racial profiling. So the previous administration quickly went from Secure Communities to PEP. And PEP pretty much was a diluted version of Secure Communities. The time that the person remained detained was much less, and then only people who had really serious criminal offenses were kept detained. Everybody else was allowed to go. That used to be PEP. Okay, so we're no longer in PEP. We're going back to Secure Communities. Okay, per the executive order. So you need to know that. And meanwhile, here in Texas, you need to watch the news, because there are things happening at the local level. For those of you who don't know, immigration law is at the federal level. So all of these things are happening at the level of federal government. But there are also things happening at the state and local levels. And at the state level, we have Senate Bill 4, which has already passed the Senate. It has moved to the House for a vote, where I don't know exactly when this is expected to be voted on, but everybody out there is practically convinced that this Senate bill will pass. And so Senate Bill 4, as you know, will eliminate sanctuary cities in the state. So sanctuary cities are cities where somebody gets in trouble with the law, local law enforcement does not necessarily communicate with immigration. Okay, everybody's busy, too busy in their own realms. So police chiefs and law enforcement agencies all over the country since the previous administration have cried out saying, we cannot do this. We cannot deputize local and state law enforcement to do the federal government's job. It's just very problematic. We need to have our communities, we need to have a relationship with them so that they trust us. And so now, if this law is approved here in Texas, it will require all law enforcement in Texas to honor any Customs and Border Protection or ICE detainers. And so, the detainers are those requests to hold people who have been arrested for 48 hours while ICE investigates their immigration status. This apparently will present also a problem for local government entities and college campuses. I don't think we will have a problem ourselves because we don't have a police department within our campus. But the same thing would apply to colleges. If they catch somebody under SB 4, they have to detain them if there's questions about their immigration status until ICE comes in and investigates and makes a determination about whether they're going to pick up the person or not. So even universities that have a campus police will have to comply, or then they will be punished by state funds being withheld. Okay. So that's it. I want to leave it at that, folks. There's more about the executive orders, but like I said, I'm not touching the wall. I'm not touching sanctuary cities. There's already something happening here in Texas now. Even if SB 4 passes, we need to see what the reaction will be. What all of us are expecting is that there will be a flurry of lawsuits all over the state, because not everybody sees eye to eye here. And so we expect that there will be a measure of a reaction or a resistance to this. So we need to continue to watch the news, pray, and see what happens. Okay? Let me say a few words about DACA. Now, DACA is Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. So we have many of you are DACAs, which means that you came to the United States when you were little with your parents, okay? Through no fault of your own, you ended up being in the country, and this is the only country that you know. Your parents either didn't cross legally or crossed with visas, and then the visas expired and they didn't go back, and so the whole family stayed. So back under the previous administration, this was a benefit that was granted. So if young people came forward and filled out the forms and everything, and they could prove that they had been here since before they were 16, and fulfill a number of requirements, then they would be given not really a path to a green card. So I need you to understand that DACA does not have a path to a green card. This is just deferral of deportation. It's like the government says to the young person, well, I should deport you, but because you're doing what I'm telling you to do, and you're coming forward, I need to have all your information. If I, on a case-by-case basis, if I think that you're okay, I'm going to grant you DACA, I'm going to give you a work permit, and I'll see you in 2 years. 2 years you can come back and renew it. In the meantime, in these 2 years, I promise you that I won't deport you. That's as far as DACA goes. Okay, so now under the executive orders, what happened, well, nothing has happened because there's nothing in the executive orders referring to DACA. So the promise was made during the campaigns that DACA was going to be eliminated. And for some reason, I had never seen this, but there are documents and drafts that are leaking out of the White House. So many of us, probably some of you, have already seen there's a draft of an executive order to kill DACA. It has been circulating for a couple of weeks. We don't know if it's going to be signed. We don't know if it's going to be edited. We don't know what's going to happen with that. It may die by itself. Nothing may happen with it, but it's already circulating. It's part of the reason why many young people are nervous. What's going to happen with me? Are they going to eliminate DACA? And now the federal government has all my information. Are they going to come after me? So these are the questions. So just a few recommendations. If you have never applied for DACA, and there are still more than a few 100,000 young people who have not applied for DACA, if you have not initially applied for DACA, don't do it. Don't do it right now. Because, this is about anywhere from 5 to 8 months process. If in the middle of the process, DACA is terminated, then you're going to lose the fee, which, as you can see, is not very inexpensive. It's $495, plus the government will have all your information in their database. So do not do it. There's something called the Bridge Act. This is a bipartisan effort to try to basically to make anybody who has DACA, to make it lawful, to make it permanent, so that people can just stay with it, don't have to renew. Right now, legally they have it. Nobody can take it away from them unless Congress decides so. So if you've never done it, don't do it. And renewals. Go ahead and renew if you have DACA, but we recommend that you come talk to me, talk to your attorney, come to an immigration attorney about your case, because every single case is different. And so there are risks. So be careful there, especially with any prior immigration or criminal issues. If there's something that happened between the time you were granted DACA and your renewal, don't go ahead and renew. Come and talk to somebody before you do that, because you may be at risk, right? And advanced parole. This is something that we have done here at the office for a few of you. If you enter the country when you were little, and you entered without documents, so now you have DACA. Well, under the law, we can ask the government to grant you advanced parole, which means permission for you to leave the country and come back. Okay, so the first time you came without documents, if we get advanced parole approved, then you go out, you come back in, but you come back in with the parole already there in your hand. So this time is different because now you're inspected, you're admitted, they put a stamp, they put a signature, And now you have lawful entry. Having that lawful entry for somebody who's a DACA opens the door to other forms of legal relief. So it was a wonderful thing. We did a couple of those at the office. We're very happy to do those. But the recommendation is don't do advance parole right now. You're DACA and you've been thinking about filing for advance parole, don't do it. Or at least come to an immigration attorney, come and talk to us so that we can take a look at your case. Because if there's something, if there's even a tiny little bit of a blemish on your record, or on your immigration record, you may be denied and put under orders of deportation. So if you have criminal arrests or charges, any type of criminal conviction, now criminal arrests or charges even without a conviction, those are problematic now, okay? Any fraud related to any official matter such as use of a false social security number or any kind of false document, or you've been deported or been ordered deported, then you're in danger. Don't file for advance parole. Okay? And you know about the 7 countries. There's a list of 7 countries. There was a specific order about them. It's these countries: Iran, Iraq, and Libya, and Sudan, Somalia, and Syria, and Yemen. And all those countries, nobody could come in, even if they had an immigrant visa. And then all refugees from those countries, stopped. All refugees from all countries, 120 days, we stopped processing those things. The people from these countries, 90 days, nobody can come in till we vet everybody. That's the language that the administration they're actually using, the extreme vetting, which is a little bit disconcerting. And you guys are students, and go and find out what is the vetting that we are already doing for refugees. In my opinion, it is already quite extreme, okay? Apparently not enough. Now, here's the issue where we have to be careful. There was quite a bit of chaos implementing this order because it was done so quickly, and Homeland Security was under a new leader. And today I was listening to an interview with him where he was apologizing, saying it was my fault for not rolling this out more slowly. They didn't do that, so it created chaos, and people were being detained in airports. People from these countries were traveling, and in the middle of the flight, they found out that they wouldn't be accepted. And so when they landed, they were detained. I mean, it was just chaos all over the place. So now there has been a temporary restraining order filed by the state of Minnesota and Michigan. You may know that from the news. And so all of this has stopped, and now we're somewhat back to normal. So Homeland Security is going back to the same practices of dealing with people as they come to the country from the different ports of entry. But if anybody's from these countries, do not travel either internationally or domestically till things settle. Okay. Here's another thing about these executive orders, guys. There was a flurry of them. They were one after another, and no advance warning from the administration, and then things are being implemented very quickly. And so this has led to quite a bit of chaos. And because the situation is so fluid, be careful. Be careful. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Some of the things I'm telling you today may not be the case, in a couple of days. We're still waiting. DACA, the administration said that they would wait 4 weeks. I think we're on the 4th week. So we're waiting. At any point, we're going to hear something from the government about DACA. So be careful about that. And the last thing, know your rights, because you have rights. Some people mistakenly think that the only people in the United States of America who have rights are United States citizens. No, everybody who is here has rights. So you need to know your rights, and let me just go over them quickly. If you're approached by an immigration officer, it is your right to refuse to speak to them. You have the right to remain silent, and actually carry a Know Your Rights card. To be able to do that, you're going to have to come to me at the end of the presentation. I have the Know Your Rights card, and I'll be happy to give one to whoever wants one. So you're approached by an immigration officer. Get this out of your pocket and just present it to them. English and Spanish. I do not wish to speak with you, sir, answer your questions, or sign or hand you any documents based on my Fifth Amendment rights under the United States Constitution. Also, I do not give you permission to enter my home based on my Fourth Amendment rights under the United States Constitution unless you have a warrant to enter signed by a judge or magistrate with my name on it that you slide under the door. I do not give you permission to search any of my belongings based on my Fourth Amendment rights. I choose to exercise my constitutional rights. Okay, be happy to give one of these to anybody who desires one. Have it carry it in your pocket in case you need it. You never know. There's going to be ICE. The presence of ICE is going to be more prevalent in the months to come. Of course, do not open the door. If they come, they must have a warrant, but I can tell you, most of the time they don't. And once you open the door, it's going to be very hard, practically impossible for you to close it. So if they present a warrant, ask them to slide it under the door. You don't need to open the door to talk with an ICE agent. And it's better for you not to even answer the door. Of course, they will come back, but you don't have to answer. You have the right to speak to a lawyer, so you can simply say, I want to speak to my attorney. And you may have your lawyer with you when you talk to ICE. And of course, don't sign anything. We've been getting reports from the border, specifically from Laredo. Even some of the Mexicans have been asked to sign Form I-407, which is an application to abandon residency. So even lawful green card holders are being presented with this document. Do not sign it. Do not sign anything until you can talk to an attorney. Okay? Always carry with you any valid immigration document you have. Even if you have a case pending and you have a notice of action saying, well, this is in process, take that letter, fold it in a million pieces, and put it in your wallet. Okay? That may save you from being detained. Do not carry papers from another country with you, such as a foreign passport. It could be used against you. And if you're worried that ICE will arrest you, let the officer know if you have children. Okay? Because you're a caregiver, they may let you go. Create a safety plan. Memorize phone numbers, friends, family members, attorney, because you may not have your phone with you. If you take care of children or other people, make a plan to have them taken care of, okay, if you are detained. And keep important documents such as birth certificates and immigration documents in a safe place in case they need to be accessed. By the way, some of you are taking pictures. I've asked Ms. Rhoda Vance to send this PowerPoint to everybody. So you guys are going to get it in your BUA email, all right, so that you can have all this information. And make sure that if you're detained, that your loved ones know where you are. So there's a way by going online. There's a thing called the online detainee locator, and there's the place. If you just answer a few questions, very, very simple questions, the system will tell you where your loved one is. Or you can also contact the local ICE office. You can also, there's the hotline number for the Executive Office for Immigration Review. So those are the numbers to call in case a loved one is detained and they disappear, because they will disappear. You won't know where to go to find them. So these are places where you can start the search. And of course, report and document raids and arrests. If you can, if you have a camera, you can take pictures. Go ahead and do that, just to make sure that there are no civil rights abuses or any abuses of any kind. And of course, find legal help. A few links here, guys. If you go to immigrationlawhelp.org, it'll tell you about all the nonprofit organizations that can help you with legal services. And you can, the Executive Office for Immigration Review also has a place where you can go and see who's doing this pro bono, which means that even, either less than $50 an hour or free. Okay? And you can also search at the American Immigration Lawyers Association. You can search for the online directory of all immigration attorneys. Okay? These are just resources for you to have. If you have to travel outside the United States, be careful, because we're hearing troubling reports. Apparently, some of the things that were happening to the people coming in from the 7 countries have been happening to people of other countries, including Mexicans. So I can tell you about the case of 2 young people from Monterrey, Mexico, who here in Laredo, they were asked to hand over their cell phones. And then they were asked for their passwords for social media. So CBP looked into their Facebook page, Twitter, Instagram, everything. And these 2 young people, they had all kinds of memes making fun of the current president of the United States. So at the end of the interview, what happened was that the phones were returned, their visas were revoked, their tourist visas were revoked, and they were sent back to Mexico. Okay, so we know it's happening, and yesterday was reported for the first time on TV that this is happening, but the report on TV is that it's happening. It's being requested of the people from the list of the 7 countries, but we know that it goes beyond that. So be careful. If you leave and come back, delete things. And if they ask you your opinion about the current president or love of the country, just be creative in giving all kinds of positive responses. That is, if you want to come into the country. Okay? It's kind of surreal that I'm telling you these things. I never thought that I would stand here telling anybody that this was the status quo in the United States of America. It feels kind of weird. I'm like in the twilight zone. But folks, I think that's my presentation. We have about 15 minutes, and I don't know if anybody has a question. I would be more than happy to answer any questions. I don't know if I can answer all questions. If I don't know, I'll research and give you an answer later. Yes, ma'am. Yes, right. Cubans, that even before this administration started, 10 days before the previous administration, there was a change in policy. So Cubans now are treated just as any other refugee. They used to be able to, they had that pies secos, pies mojados policy, where if they were able to make it all the way to the continental United States, the minute they set foot in continental land, they had 1 year to apply. They would be received. They had 1 year to apply for asylum. Within a year, they would have a green card. And that was a privilege that they had that nobody from any other Latin American country or any other country, period, had. So now with that the Cuba-U.S. relations have been, there have been efforts to normalize more and more the relationship. So part of that had to logically mean, we need to treat Cubans just the way we treat everybody else. And so now that's why there are more than a few of them stranded in Laredo, because if they set foot into the United States, they will be treated as refugees, and they will have to be detained for the whole duration of the process, which can be up to 2 years. So who's going to leave their country to come here just to be told that they're going to spend the next 2 years in jail in the United States? So that's why they're in Nuevo Laredo. So that has been a recent change. I don't expect anything else that would take us back to the way things were. If anything, it's probably going to get harder for them. Anybody else? Yes. Sí.
Esa niña es muy inteligente, tiene excelentes calificaciones, le están llegando muchas becas, tiene como 7, y ella no sabe qué hacer, si aceptarlas o no aceptarlas.
¿Y es indocumentada?
Ella es DACA.
Oh, yes, DACA, okay. So we're talking about the case of a young lady who's very talented, has been offered about 7 scholarships, and she doesn't know what to do. And she's a DACA. You know, the best advice for DACA right now is to just continue to do things as you normally would. But be aware that this is so fluid that it can change tomorrow. Now, even if it change, you know, if something happens to where there's an executive order issued that says, you know, DACA will be terminated, we need to know details. So when is it going to be terminated? Is it immediately? And the people who already have employment authorization cards, will they be able to keep working till the cards expire? Or will the termination be immediate so that they will be immediately terminated? We don't know any of that, even if DACA is terminated. So best advice, continue to live your life as normally as you can. If she has offers to go to college, tell them to take those offers to apply to college. Otherwise, we go crazy. We have to be able to continue to live our lives as normally as we possibly can. So that would be the advice. Anybody else? ¿Alguien más? Yes, sir.
I have already applied the Central Med, the clinic, and I didn't use it, the benefit, because my friend told me that maybe right now when I use the benefit, one day if I apply the green card, maybe it will have trouble. How do you think?
Okay, what I didn't catch is what
Central Med,
oh,
but he apparently didn't use the help because it might affect his green card application.
oh, went to Central Med and apply. Okay. Well, you know, if you are on a student visa, then you know you're entitled to emergency services unless you have your own insurance. So I mean, it's not something necessarily that's going to hurt you. And if by all means, if you need to go see the doctor, go see the doctor. Don't let these immigration things stop you from taking care of what's urgent and essential. If I were you, that would be the furthest thing from my mind would be worrying about these things when you know, I worry about my health and other health issues. Anybody else? Yes, Brother Fred.
What's a way that we can give to all of our local churches?
To all of our local churches. I love that question. I wish they asked me that question more. Okay. What churches need to do first and foremost is to make sure that they love everybody who is within the four walls. Love them without regard for their immigration status. And of course, I hope that you know we work hard to make sure that churches know who we are and where we are, because if anybody within a church, if their case seems to be some help from any immigration consultant or any BIA representative, by all means send them to us. But I also think, Brother Fred, that we need to tell churches not to panic, because that's what I've seen quite a bit in conversations and then in phone calls, that people get very panicky. And then they start listening to everybody. And then everybody has a different version of the story. We start getting confused and full of anguish. So we need to, you know, the body of Christ needs to be ambassadors of peace. So whatever we do, we need to lead people to peace and trust in the Lord. And the Isaac Project is not the only organization. There are other organizations like us. We're not the only ones. But by all means, if you're in the body of Christ, you have somebody close to you who needs help, just point them to us, and we'll be happy to help them. Professor Bird.
Do churches have any different legal standing as sanctuaries than cities? I mean, the idea seems to be that churches have a little more I know.
Yes.
Sometimes churches give sanctuary. I just want to.
Yes, and you know, but here's the thing. It's not written anywhere. It's been one of those things that has been sort of understood by everybody, that schools and churches are sacred places where you can go and be safe. So, see, if it's not in the law. So, and with the situation being so fluid, you know, now with the executive orders, all of a sudden, universities that have campus police now have to worry about complying with these orders. So the question is, what's going to happen next? We don't know. But I still think, and I am convinced, and I act accordingly, that the churches are sanctuaries, and we need to intentionally use them as such to protect the people that come to us. I mean, that's what the Lord Jesus would do. Don't forget your cards. Be blessed, guys.
Any other questions, anything? That's why we have Dr. Romero here.
Oh,
He can help you.
remember that for the BUA family, the consultations with us are free. All you have to do is just call Edith or Sam to make an appointment. We'll gladly talk to you free of charge. Okay?
And if you're a student, you are BUA family. Okay. All right, folks, let's have a blessed day.